I know you, bro. You're not allowed to say 16. You have to say something else.
17.
Huh?
So number was it 18?
What is number 17?
No problem, you can come now.
Have you got all the list there, yeah?
Oh, this one.
I'm gonna need some help there, inshallah, yeah? So I can't remember all the du'as off the top of my head. In order.
I'll be back in like half an hour. Yeah?
Why are you running away, bro?
No, I'm gonna.
Are you running away from the questions, yeah?
I have to get something.
He knows he's gonna be asked, Sheikh. He's running.
I'm gonna get something. That's it.
Are you doing a test?
Yeah, no, not a test, but I'm testing Ayman, innit? What's number 17, Ayman? What's dua number 18?
18. It's that one, I know it. Like,
Is it?
Yeah, I know.
I told you, right?
Yes, you know, like,
I take him home every day, right? I'm like, what's the dua today? He's like, I'm like, brother, if Eid comes, right, and you don't know the duas, that's it, man.
We're fasting as well. That's no excuse. So I stand there after Isha and say, brothers, I'm fasting.
No doubt.
No, I'll tell you this. You know, like 2 days ago, Imam somehow all came to remember. I was reciting every single dua. Like it came to me every dua. Somehow.
Is it?
Light bulb went off.
I can't remember that day. He's blagging it again. Maybe he's blagging it again.
Imam Hamid started speaking. I was following him.
Subhanallah, what are you gonna do, man? Are we live yet? Or?
Yeah, we're live.
Okay, bismillah, let's begin inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته everybody. And everybody watching at home, and welcome to another session of du'as from the Qur'an, the final session in Ramadan, where inshallah we have alhamdulillah completed all of the du'as that we set out to complete, alhamdulillah, which is fantastic news. Really happy about that, alhamdulillah. And hopefully, inshallah, we've memorized all of them, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. This is going to be a test session, inshallah. So I'm going to test you in all of your du'as. Alright? I'm going to say, now what's number 24? And you have to tell me what the du'a is. I'll say, what's number 17? You're going to tell me the du'a, inshallah. And the people watching at home, I'll test you in a different way, inshallah. I'll think about it. But I'll find a way to test you all. Alright, no one's going to get away, inshallah. No, I'm messing. So, bi'idhnillah, I didn't really have anything that, in particular that I wanted to talk about today. I just thought that, inshallah, if today is not Eid, then bi'idhnillah we'll meet up again, inshallah, and we'll fill the time up with something that is beneficial, inshallah ta'ala. So, on the way here, I was thinking, okay, what can I possibly cover, mashallah? We can do a couple of honorable mentions that we didn't mention from the Qur'an with regards to the du'as. What I prefer is maybe to go through some of the favorite du'as and the du'as that really stuck out, inshallah ta'ala, as well as how to use these du'as. So we've gone through, alhamdulillah, we have 31 du'as in our repertoire now, right? Each one of us, inshallah, can now recite 30 du'as, right? And if they can't yet, then they can recite at least 10. And if not 10, then 5. And if not 5, then what are you doing? What have you done the whole month that you can't memorize 30 du'as? What's going on, guys? Right? But the point is, we have a number of du'as in our repertoire that we're able to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with. There has to be sort of a systematic way that we make those du'as with, right? So alhamdulillah, what we've done in our sessions is that we've gone through it in sort of semi kind of like chronological order with regards to where it's found in the Qur'an. I know we've sort of mixed it up here and there a bit with some of the du'as, but in general we've kind of stuck to the chronology of the Qur'an itself. But begs the question, when do you use it? Do you go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, going through all the du'as from the beginning to the end? But then that is going to render the du'as meaningless as they were meaningless once before, right? Because many of us knew some of these du'as before, right? But they didn't hold any significant meaning when we said them. We kind of knew what they meant in terms of like the English translation and stuff like that, and we kind of knew what they were about and what they were used for, but the impact and the depth of those du'as was never really there. So the reason why it was never really there is because they were just words, right? Now, alhamdulillah, hopefully, inshallah, through the sessions, we have learnt a little bit more about them and about their depth, inshallah. So they're no longer words anymore, but they mean something to us when we say them, right? Now, if we're going to do the whole order thing, where it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just saying it for the sake of saying it, then they'll, inshallah, or hopefully not, but they will, in the end, revert back to just words again. So those du'as that now have meaning in our hearts are going to be rendered meaningless as they once were before. So in order to curb that and stay away from that, and keep that impact in our lives, we have to use them for what they are intended to be used for, right? So if the dua was used for steadfastness, then we use that dua whenever we want to ask for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for steadfastness. If that dua is all about oppression and alleviating the oppressed, then we know when to use it and how to use it and in what context we're using it, and so we use it in that context, right? And we said that there isn't a time or place where any of the du'as that we mentioned cannot be used, right? So a lot of the du'as, they talk about seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy and His forgiveness for our sins, right? And there is not a time and place where you can't use that dua, right? رَبَّنَا اغْفِرْ لَنَا رَبَّنَا ظَلَمْنَا أَنفُسَنَا وَإِن لَمْ تَغْفِرْ لَنَا وَتَرْحَمْنَا لَنَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. If Adam alayhi salam was the one who used that dua, the time he used it, then he used it when he committed a sin, and everyone else after him is the same. So everyone else needs to use that same dua, right? So there's not a time or place, generation, or anything like that, that it doesn't come where we don't need to use that dua. The dua for steadfastness, everybody requires that in their lives, right? The extravagance that we are doing in our own lives, there is not a time or place where that extravagance isn't either felt or done by ourselves, right? So رَبَّنَا اغْفِرْ لَنَا ذُنُوبَنَا وَإِسْرَافَنَا فِي أَمْرِنَا وَثَبِّتْ أَقْدَامَنَا وَانصُرْنَا عَلَى الْقَوْمِ الْكَافِرِينَ, right? The وَانصُرْنَا عَلَى الْقَوْمِ الْكَافِرِينَ has come in a number of du'as, and there is not a time or place where our iman is not on the hinges or at risk of being stamped out and snatched away, right? The light of iman is looking to be extinguished in every generation, at every time, at every place, right? It might not be right now in your life, but there will be a time where that will come, and there'll be a situation where others are going through that right now that you can make dua for, right? And we said that these du'as are not just individualistic, they're not just selfish, they don't just come back to you where you are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for yourself, rather you are asking for others also. There's not a time and place where dhulm, oppression, isn't happening, and the oppressed. So whenever that is taking place, whether it's happening to us or it's happening to somebody else, we turn around to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, رَبَّنَا أَخْرِجْنَا مِنْ هَذِهِ الْقَرْيَةِ الظَّالِمِ أَهْلُهَا وَجَعَلْ لَنَا مِن لَدُنْكَ وَلِيًّا وَجَعَلْ لَنَا مِن لَدُنْكَ نَصِيرًا, right? So go through all of those instances. There's not going to be a time or a situation where we're not going to feel that we're overwhelmed by whatever situation is happening in front of us, and that we are not able to overcome that situation. So what do? We turn around to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we say, رَبِّ اشْرَحْ لِي صَدْرِي وَيَسِّرْ لِي أَمْرِي وَاحْلُلْ عُقْدَةً مِنْ لِسَانِي يَفْقَهُ قَوْلِي. There's not a situation or time or place where you don't have responsibilities. There is no time and place where you can just sit down with your legs crossed, put your feet up, and just relax, right? There is always going to be a responsibility over your shoulders. There might come a time where you can, for a short period of time, just switch off, right, and do nothing. But that time is always going to be interrupted by some form of responsibility coming your way. And you have to be ready to live up to that responsibility and rise up to that responsibility. And you know those burdens are always going to be difficult, and they're going to be hard for you to stand face to face with and overcome and be able to carry them for a long period of time. It's okay doing like one thing, doing your chores, right? Washing the dishes. Right? Easy, man. You just do that. Wife tells you don't wash the dishes. Mum tells you wash the dishes. You wash the dishes, job done. That's a responsibility, right? Burden. Taken care of. Done and dusted in a second, in a flash. No burden, no nothing, right? But now I have work to do, and I have mouths to feed. I have parents to look after who are elderly. I have children, right, that rely on me, that I need to take care of. I have family and friends that look to me for solace and for some form of a relationship with, for advice, and I seek their advice too and their counsel, right? And I need to spend time with them. There is my deen, there is my Allah. I need to spend time doing my ibadah. I need to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All of these things are responsibilities, right? So you can't live your life putting all your eggs in one basket. They have to be spread out, and that's where the success truly lies, right? A successful person is not someone who is extremely good at one thing and one thing only, because there is a chance where even if you're extremely good at that one thing, you may not be able to fulfill your potential in doing that one thing. Let's say someone's really, really good at football, for example. Extremely good. So he puts all his eggs in one basket and wants to become a professional football player, right? You may not be successful in that. There may be hurdles in your way. You may be around friends that don't want your success, so they take you down the wrong path. Now, instead of training and being disciplined with your diet and with the way you carry yourself, you end up going down a wrong path, and then the opportunities that were once there are no longer there, and you're not successful in that. Let's say someone's really good at finance. right? Really good at mathematics, really good with money, right? And he's got his heart set on working in the city, for example, for some financial firm, or he wants to be himself a broker with his own firm, right? Wants to be really, really successful and get all the money in the world. So he sets his sights on that, but the opportunities may not come his way where he's going to be able to achieve that potential. But even though he's really, really good at it, right? But so he's squandered everything else that he possibly could have been, and he's put all his eggs in one basket, but failed at that. So the truly successful person isn't the one who is extremely good at one thing and one thing only, while a fraction of the population may be good at that. The Elon Musks, right? What are the two Muslim brothers that are like, they bought out Asda recently, and they're building that £5 million mosque up north. What are they called? Javid and I can't remember their names. Anyway, but they're really, really successful, right? They got like a multi-billion pound business empire that they have. So these people are few and far between, handful, you can count them on your fingers. They're like the 1% of society, right? But the rest of us, we don't have that luxury, right? And we don't have those opportunities in life, if you like. So our success doesn't lie in doing one thing and one thing only. Our success lies in doing a multitude of things. So in these multitude of things are multitudes of responsibilities and burdens. So whenever we're faced with these responsibilities, what's the dua that we make for these? We say, رَبَّنَا لَا تُؤَاخِذْنَا إِن نَسِينَا وَأَخْطَأْنَا. That was the first test, guys. You flopped. I didn't hear a voice. رَبَّنَا لَا تُؤَاخِذْنَا إِن نَسِينَا وَأَخْطَأْنَا. Because there's not going to be a time when we don't make a mistake and we don't forget. رَبَّنَا وَلَا تَحْمِلْ عَلَيْنَا إِصْرًا كَمَا حَمَلْتَهُ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِنَا. Don't put a burden on us as you put upon the burden of the people before us. We're going to fall short. The way they had to make tawbah was by sacrificing, by giving money, by doing certain things that were obligatory for them to do. All we have to do is raise our hands and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. Right? رَبَّنَا وَلَا تُحَمِّلْنَا مَا لَا طَاقَةَ لَنَا بِهِ. Recognizing that it is only by the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He hasn't given us a burden that is more than we can bear. Right? Only by His fadl, only by His favor upon us. Right? Otherwise He's totally able to do that. But He didn't do that because of His love and because of His mercy towards mankind. Right? So we recognize that, and when we are carrying out our responsibilities, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make them easy. Right? And wa'fu anna waghfir lana warhamna, for all of the things that we fall short with. Allah, He made it. Right? Wa'fu anna waghfir lana warhamna anta mawlana. You are our master, you are our Lord, you are the one who is in control, right, of our destinies. Fansurna al qawm al kafirin. Grant us victory over those who wish to snatch away our iman. Why is it snatch away our iman here? Because whenever we are carrying out our responsibilities, it's difficult with the responsibilities themselves. But it's even more difficult when we have people who are opposing us with those responsibilities, right? They don't want us to pray, they don't want us to fast, they don't want us to have iman, they don't want us to stand against riba, they don't want us to be against zina, they don't want us anything that is pleasurable, anything that leads to power, anything that leads to control. They don't want us to be against, right? We have to be subservient, we have to do all of those things, right? And it's a terrible situation to be in, because even the things that you want to do in life, right, that are normal, that I consider normal. You want to live in a house, right? You want to buy a car, right? You want to have a university education, right? All of these things you have to delve into riba with. You have to delve into the haram. If you want to buy a house, you've got to get a mortgage, right? Unless you are, mashallah, from the very few that have been very, very successful and the dunya has smiled upon them and the bank account has many zeros on the right side of the decimal point, right? Huh?
What happened? We do have to take it on.
Do we have to?
Yeah.
No.
You want to have a house or what?
No. There are alternatives. There are alternatives to living, right? You don't have to take a mortgage. But the point is, when you want to, if you want to buy a house, and for 90% of us, right, when we want to buy a house, got to get a mortgage. There is no, do you have like £500,000, £300,000 in your bank? Do you have it that you can procure it just like that? All right, you can't. Is anybody going to lend you that money from people that you know? No. Are they going to give you a payment plan that you're going to be able to pay back? No. What options do you have then? Halifax, NatWest, Barclays, right? These are the options, man. And they come. Suleiman. Bank Suleiman. Akramak Allah Bank. Right? So you don't have, those are the options, right? And they come in the guise of like people who want to give you like, you know, the best start in life, and they're your friends and stuff. But really what they're doing is, here's a couple £100,000, right? But I own you now. Do you know what I mean? But they come with like all these smiley faces and stuff and whatnot. Buying a car as well, right? Buying a car as well. Essential. You need to get from A to B. If you want an old banger, no problem, right? Auto Trader will sort you out. But if you want like a brand new car, right? Do you have like 60 grand, 50 grand? You got to get it on finance. You got to get it on lease. You got to get it on some other payment plan that somewhere involves riba. There's some sort of financial sort of model that they're using that is riba based, right? So even the essentials in life, right? And that's how society pushes you towards it in that direction. You want to get a university a degree. You want to get educated. You want to have the best start in life. You want to, inshallah, get a good job. The only way you're going to do that is by getting a university degree. And in order to get a university degree, what do you have to do? Get a loan out and pay off the student the fees, right? What is it, 9 grand a year now or something like that? Is it 9 grand a year? What is it now?
9,250, just over.
Just over 9, yeah? Alright, 250 quid. Still, man, still, bro. So £9,250 a year, right? Average university degree is about 3 years, maybe 4 years, right? What's that? 9 times 3. You gotta do the math, man. And that's in the thousands, man, right? And at the end of it, what? You get a job and you gotta pay that off for I don't know how long, right? They own you, man. They own you. This is the system that we live in. This is the time that we live in, right? So it's one thing like having those burdens of responsibility on us, right? As Muslims, as people who want to live a life of Islam and go down the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and go down the route that leads to Jannah. That's one thing, right? But having people that are just shoving this stuff down your throats and pulling you off the Sirat al-Mustaqim as much as possible, right? So picture yourself on a path. This path, at the end, there's Jannah, there's Allah, there's the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam waiting for you, right? And you can see, it's a straight path. There's no like turnings or anything like that. You can see the destination, where it is. You know where it's headed. And you want to get there. And all the while, you're just being pulled by your arms, left, right, and center. Oh, go this way, go this way, go this way. And you're miskeen, weak, on your own. How are you going to withstand all of those pulls? Okay, one pull, you can get your arm free. And the other one's pulling you here, and you get your arm free. And the other one's pulling you down zina. It's like, no, I don't want to do that. It's like, no, riba, no, do riba. No, I don't want to do that. Okay, do some sort of haram here. Okay, fine, I'll do that there. Right? And the next thing you know, you're being pulled further and further and further away, and then you don't see that goal anymore, and you're like, why am I alive again? SubhanAllah. Right? So then the burdens become even more difficult. And they become like, unbearable. And thus, they leave in their droves. Allah musta'an. Talk to me, guys. You guys tell me, what was your favorite du'as? You got your favorite, yeah? Go on, Riyaz, tell us.
ربي أعوذ بك من هذا.
Hamazat al-Shayateen, yes, brother. You know. Why was that your favorite? What stood out for you?
Shaitan run around me.
That guy. Get my juta and just like the Jabarat, right? Allahu Akbar. Real man. Huh?
I have to admit it,
Rabbi A'udhu. No, absolutely. MashaAllah, it's beautiful, man. It's beautiful, MashaAllah. That's courage as well, Riyaz, man. So, Rabbi A'udhu bika min hamazat al-shayateen, right? We know that, right? Hamazat al-shayateen. I know that too well, man. And it's true. And that's one of the du'as that we should, inshallah, recite. Did you know that du'a before these sessions, yeah? Alhamdulillah, man. Beautiful, man. Jamal, talk to me, man.
The one from Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam.
Which one? Rabbi anzilni munzalan mubarakah. Wa anta khairul munzilin. So a lot of these du'as, they're very similar in terms of like the meaning, right? In terms of the context, not the context, but in terms of how they're used. So Rabbi anzilni munzalan mubarakah, we know that Nuh alayhi salam was in a really difficult situation. He wants to change his situation from that to something else, right? And we have others as well, like ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا, right? We want to move, we want to get to a certain place, a certain goal, we want to achieve it. And there's others as well that we've taken. So many of them have like the same meaning. But why did that stand out for you?
Because you're always looking for something better.
Allahu Akbar.
Trying to improve your situation.
Yeah. MashaAllah, man. Always improving the situation, man.
Said that, Nuh alayhi salam, he had no pity for. His du'as were about.
لا تذر على الأرض من الكافرين ديارا. Yeah, man. No nonsense. Nuh alayhi salam. And one of the few that were like that. And you can only imagine, right, what his people were like as well to him, how they treated him, how they treated the believers with him, what kind of like marginalization was going on at that time, what type of abuse that was being hurled at him, right? Not that Nuh alayhi salam, we can imagine he was reactionary at all, but when it comes down to it, it's like you have every sign in the world. And at that time, right, there's not, I'm sure there's not a lot to do, right? There's not how many distractions. There's not exactly Netflix and YouTube and stuff like that to waste your time on. There's not like a mass amount of wealth. There's no like forex trading and stuff that you can like, you know, get busy with. There's no cryptocurrencies that are so volatile that you just take up all your time. Well, I've seen these guys, man, they're just like on it all the time. And as soon as the subject is raised, brother, oh yeah, oh, you got to hold, you got to do this, you got to invest in this and XRP this and theta. There's all these like, altcoins. See that, brother? Yeah, Elon Musk, he came out and he said, it's driving me crazy, man. Right? But you just get so caught up in all of these different worlds, right? That you have absolutely no time for anything else. So you can't really imagine that these things were around back then. So what is going to distract you from Allah? What's going to take you away from the signs of Allah? You have everything there from the signs of Allah available to you. And you have Nuh alayhi salam there amongst you, calling to you, right? With knowledge that you haven't been given. He's talking from revelation, right? So how can someone then turn around and be like, yeah. Because you can understand this time, right? We have all this modern technology that seems to blind us from what the Prophet ﷺ came with. I mean, when the Prophet ﷺ came with what he came with, it's miraculous, right? Here's an illiterate man who's come with something that is a miracle in the world of literacy, right? Unlettered, can't read, can't write, right? Doesn't have any power amongst his people, didn't have any kingship in his forefathers either. But all of these people decide to make him their leader. He is just, he is trustworthy, he is all these things that people weren't during his time, right? All of the attributes of perfection were found in this one man, right? And he was able to do what no man has ever been able to accomplish, right? So here we have this person, that's miraculous, right? But now we live in a time where there are even more miraculous things that are taking place, right? To our eyes, and to the eyes of the meek and those who don't have iman in their hearts, easily distracted by these things. But what is there in the time of Nuh alayhi salam for you to take you away from the ayat of Allah? So here you have Nuh alayhi salam. He has given them these clear signs, and they are rejecting every single one of them, and choosing a path that leads to their destruction, seeing their destruction coming to them, and saying, "Hada aridun mumtiruna." Right? This is rain that has come to fall on our crops, and it's going to be beneficial for us. They're rejoicing that their punishment is coming to them. And here's Nuh alayhi salam calling them to salvation, right? And these are all like, they're literally happening, but for us, metaphorically speaking, we take lessons from this, that we're calling people to the haqq, and there's no one listening. The Prophet ﷺ calling his people to the haqq, and there's nobody listening. And it's clear for everyone to see, and they can all see it, and they can all see what their own lifestyles are doing to them, and the path that it leads to, that is unsustainable. The way we're living today, and the constructs that we've made in terms of how society is made up, they're unsustainable. They can't be sustained, and they are only sustained right now by tyrannical rule, by power, right? By armies, by policing, by heavy draconian measures that they're putting in place, right? Fear tactics and smear tactics. If you speak out, then you're defamed, right? All the stuff that's happening in Al-Aqsa now and stuff, and you've got people that are holding back and using, specific words like conflict and stuff like that. It's not a conflict, man. It can't be a conflict. How can it be a conflict? That's like me beating up a kid and saying it's a fight. It's not a fight. It's not a fight. It can't be, man. Right? But if you say these things, you're cancelled. We live in cancel culture, right? So if anybody with any type of importance, any type of platform comes out and says these sorts of things, they're cancelled, right? And there's a lot of money being pumped into, what's happening there, right? In terms of arms and all sorts. Hadith la haraj, right? There's loads of things that are going on there, right? I think it came up recently, Roman Abramovich, he's got like 100 million donation, I think, not even investment. 74 million, yeah? Something like that. It's close. I think it was $100 million now, right? In donations to some of the settlement companies there, right? Sorry?
Amazing how poor they are.
I know, subhanAllah, masakeen, man, right? So all of this stuff, there's heavy involvement in all this sort of stuff. How do we get onto this subject? What are we talking about? Shall I keep going? Let's see where it goes. Nuh alayhi salam, yeah, man, no nonsense, right? So signs are being given to all these people that look, the path that you guys are going is not sustainable. It leads to destruction. It leads to displacement of people. It leads to killing widespread, right? People's blood are being spilt on another level. Children are dying. Children, what have they done, man? Innocent. They have no dog in this fight, but they're dying left, right, and center, right? So this stuff is not sustainable. The way we're doing it is clearly wrong. It's clearly wrong. This is not the right way to live. This is not the right way to conduct ourselves. This is not the right way to deal with one another. There has to be an alternative. There has to be a different solution. What is that alternative? Islam. It's already laid out for you guys, right? But no, again, blinded by everything else. So what they do is they nitpick. You say beat women. You say take slaves. You say this. All of these distractions, man. All of these deflecting, right? What about no riba anymore? What about that? Isn't that good for everybody? Isn't that good for us poor people who are struggling, who are living from month to month, from paycheck to paycheck? Isn't that going to be good for us? Isn't that going to be good for everybody else? Even the middle class, they're going to benefit from that. Even the rich will benefit from it as well, right? Isn't that going to be a more just society, more fairer society? Isn't that going to be all about opportunities now? So the people who are meritorious in their works, they're the ones who are going to be rewarded, not the people who have money, so they just get money on top of money. Their money does the work for them. They don't do any work, right? So now it's all about merit. It's about the amount of good that you do and the amount of difference that you can make with the work that you're doing, right? Isn't that better for society? Isn't that going to stabilize things? Isn't that going to give more opportunity to those who don't have anything to become something, to do something, to be valuable members of society, right? Donations, man. Zakat system. They always talk about like Warren Buffett, Mark Zuckerberg, all these other guys, right? Bill Gates as well. They had this thing about 5 years ago where they said that they were going to give, when they die, 90% or 95% or 99% of their wealth to charity, right? They're going to give it all away. Chiefs. A bunch of chiefs. Why? Because what they meant by that was they're going to put it in charitable funds that they themselves have set up, right? And these charitable funds, what they do is 90% of their money will go into it, right? But what the charitable funds what they'll do is they'll be investing in philanthropic and entrepreneurial enterprises wherever they see fit to invest in and give, that's where they'll give, right? So it's basically their money just invested through a charity that belongs to them, that's invested in companies that they maybe own or maybe have a hand in making, and again the money just sort of comes back to them. So it's sort of like, yeah, we're going to give to charity, but what that means is like you've got poor people up here, you've got rich people up here. We're going to give to charity. What charity means is the money here comes down here and these people benefit from it, right? But their idea of charity is the charity goes here, it circles around a little bit and then it comes back up here. That's the charity that they're talking about, right? So you have the answer to a sustainable society, right? And it happens every year, right? I think it's in the trillions now that money is actually transferred literally from the rich to the poor. And even from the not so rich, right? Because many of us are not so rich, but we're still giving zakat, right? We're still giving sadaqah, right? We still have those principles and those ethics in our way of life. So this stuff is still happening on a yearly basis. In Ramadan especially, right? It happens a lot. And obviously everyone's capitalized on this. Everyone's realized this. So, you know, the marketing campaigns for Happy Eid and Eid Mubarak. Did you guys see that meme about which supermarket was it? That was like, have these Eid Mubarak banners, but then underneath it was like, like £9.99 for like Carlsberg or something. You know, was it Corona? Well, coronavirus or? Corona alcohol.
I think that's Photoshop.
Still, it's funny though. I would have put it past them to do something like that. It's probably Photoshop, man. Yeah, but anyway, that's funny.
That was a good one.
That was a good one, man. That was a good one. But yeah, they're capitalizing it anyway. So they're what's it called? They're bringing the capitalist system to our celebrations as well. So Ramadan, Eid, and all this stuff. The Hajj season, when it comes, you'll see all this stuff happening as well. But anyway, aside from all of this stuff, right, you are called to a system that will work, that is sustainable, that is just for everybody, right, that is inclusive for everybody. And we said before, right, Algerian, Moroccan, Pakistan, Mauritian, Nigerian, me, I don't know what I am, right? But there's nothing that brought us together except Islam. And there's nothing that makes me better than you or you better than me with what you have and what I have. Doesn't matter how much money I have in the bank or how much money I don't have in the bank. Doesn't matter what car I drive or what house I go to when I go home. What matters is in my heart, the taqwa that's in my heart. What matters is the taqwa in your heart. And if there's no taqwa in my heart, then I am absolutely nowhere near as good as any of you. And vice versa. Right? That's how it works. That's the system. Right? It's not based on material things. Isn't that possible? But we see that as impossible, man. It's impossible to get there. Why? Because we're so deluded by the current system. It's just everywhere. It's just like we're drowning in it. Just like Nuh alayhi salam. Right? So when he sees that, and he sees the destruction coming, and it's unsustainable the way they're living, and the way they're treating others, and what they're doing, that come to the haqq, come to what will be your salvation. But for them, salvation wasn't like equality and everybody getting their fair share, and the poor actually being taken care of by the rich, and this sort of stuff. That wasn't the salvation. The salvation was go with Nuh alayhi salam on the boat. That was salvation, right? The destruction wasn't that they'll destroy their own selves and their economy and there'll be widespread bloodshed and all this other stuff. That wasn't the destruction. The destruction then was drowning in the water. You know what I mean? So, and they didn't take it. They didn't heed it. So what did Nuh say? You guys are gone, man. وَلَا تَزِدِ الظَّالِمِينَ إِلَّا تَبَارًا. Right? This is not only a dua, but a description of their reality. That وَلَا تَزِدِ الظَّالِمِينَ إِلَّا تَبَارًا, and do not increase the zalimeen except in destruction. Right? That Nuh alayhi salam is asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase them in their own destruction of their own selves, right? But it's also a description of their reality. That they are going around destroying the world. They are destroying society. They are destroying families, right? They are destroying what brings people together. And they are separating everybody all the time, and making us further and further away from each other, right? That's what they're doing. And that's what's happening, right? It's happening today, and it was happening back then as well, right? And if you were to say to them, لا تفسدوا في الأرض, do not do this, do not spread corruption, you guys need to fix up. قالوا إنما نحن مصلحون. They turn around and they say, no, we're doing good, man. We're the ones who are fixing the world. Have you heard about this whole Bill Gates and the farming in India? How he wants to revolutionize farming. So basically what he wants to do is he's already got like 60% of the land there or something like that, right? Some mad amounts. What he wants to do is he wants to take the traditional form of farming with like the oxen and that sort of thing, right? He wants to replace farmers with machines, right? So there's no longer farmers who own the land and who till the land and who who live off the land. Rather, it's machines that do everything. And they're managed by, a few people per square acre or something like that. But anyway, that's what's going to happen. And basically you're going to put like, I think 70% of the, I don't know the actual figures, but a large part of the livelihood of rural areas of India is based on farmland, right? And if you're not living in a big city, you're living in rural areas, your life is on a farm. And if you take that away, basically all of India, that is not a city, is basically what's going to happen to them, right? I think the suicide rates of farmers there as well is on some next level high numbers, right? Because obviously they got barely any land because the land has been bought out from under their feet, and then they have to rent the land, and the only way they're going to be able to rent the land is by selling the crops that come from the land, and they don't get any crops because rain is sometimes scarce as a result of global warming, pollution, or whatever you want to call it. But the rain gets scarce, so every time they miss something, a payment, then more of the land is taken away, they can't support their families and stuff, and they've got large families to support, so they take their lives, right? This is the fasad. As a result of what? Not because like it didn't rain. If it didn't rain, fine, you're patient and stuff because you don't have any other external pressures. No, but this is as a result of some guy or group of guys, and they're a handful in number, right? You can count them on your fingers. A group of guys wanting the land there in India. That's all. They want it. That's all. And they want it, why? Not because they want to somehow benefit the Indians and the Indian people. No, they just want more money and more power and more control. Control the resources as you control everybody else, right? Because it gets to a point when you get to the upper echelons, you need more control. You can't continue because there's too much competition at that level, and there's way too much power to lose if you're not in control, right? If your competitor has more than you and is looking to take you out, then you have a lot more to lose than anybody else does. Right? But for an average farmer, it's like, yeah, I'll sell my land and I'll go invest somewhere else and I'll go do something else, right? So when you run out of things to do with Facebook, and you run out of things to do on Amazon, and you run out of things to do in these sorts of areas, and you've completely saturated those markets, you're going to have to search elsewhere for your power and for an increase, right? So you go into rockets and space, and you go into something else, and you go into farming, and you go into like the sea, fish farming and stuff like that, and you go through all these different areas and thinking, what are you doing? What are you doing in all these different areas? What is a philanthropist doing in all these different areas, right? What is a person like? Why does he need all of this control in all these different areas? Isn't this what a government does? Isn't this what like sort of government legislation? They sort of manage these areas. They're the ones who provide all of these things for us and stuff. But that's not happening. That's happening by these individuals, right? So this is the kind of situation that we live in now. So if the ayat have already come, right? وَلَا تَزْدِ الظَّالِمِينَ إِلَّا تَبَارًا. We see that, man. It's a pure and sort of like clear description of what their actions are leading to, right? And so we as Muslims, when we see this stuff and when we read this stuff, when we read the Qur'an and we understand that no, this is not what society is supposed to be like, this is not how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to be, there has to be a stand, right? There has to be some form of like dissidence. There has to be some sort of like voicing, no guys, this is not the way that the world should be, because it induces hatred, animosity, it induces hasad, envy and jealousy amongst us. We're competing with things, so we're going to kill each other, not for any real reason, not because you guys are criminals and have committed any crime, but rather because you have something that I want, and I'm willing to spill blood in order to get it, right? And it's the wars that have happened in the Middle East, for centuries, the proxy wars that take place all across Muslim worlds, and throughout Africa, all these things that are happening there, all for the resources and the power and stuff like that. And we all know this stuff, right? We all know it. It's all old news. We're well aware of it. But because it's like, it happens so often and it's reported in a certain way, we become like numb to it, right? So when, the whole thing when Aqsa came about, right? And it sort of kicked off a couple of days ago. I saw it and I was like, oh, okay, it's happening again. That was the first thing that came to my mind. I was like, oh, yeah, there we go again. It's Ramadan, right? It happens like pretty much every Ramadan. I think last Ramadan they had something. No, I don't think they had anything last Ramadan because it was coronavirus, right? COVID was here and everyone calmed down. COVID just stayed, man. Allah understand, right? So, but 2 years ago they did it, and then the year before that they did it. The year before that, it was almost every Ramadan, like consistently they were doing something, right? So this year when it happened again, the first thing that came into my mind was, Allah, it's happening again, right? But that was because I'm so like used to the fact that there's always something going on every Ramadan in that area, right? Between Israel and Palestine and so on and so forth, right? And then I was born in a generation that inherited that problem, right? I wasn't there when I wasn't alive, and I wasn't old enough to understand the situation when it was early enough, when things were actually going on, and there was this two-state solution in the 60s and stuff like that, and early 70s, and before that as well, right? So I wasn't around at that time, but when I was sort of savvy to it in like the early 2000s and late 2000s, by that time, dude, there's no two-state solution, man. There's almost no Palestine. It's just an idea now, right? But the way it's going on and the way it's happening still, it's almost like it's two states that are fighting. But it's not two states that are fighting. It's like a prison, and people who run that prison, right? Gaza is literally a prison. There's no ports, there's no airport, there's no entry, there's no exit, except that you have to go through checkpoints. They decide whether you go out or you go in, and who goes out and who goes in.
And in your country.
Do you know what I mean? That's not a country.
I mean, in your place, it used to be Palestine.
Yeah, that's not a country. The West Bank and what happens there is pretty much the same thing, and that's all like broken down into like municipalities, right? And each municipality has like an entrance and exit point, just like Gaza. So it's just like, this is not a country. What are you talking about? Two-state solution? What are you talking about? Like, and they're just encroaching, and just like forcing people out of their lands and stuff. And then when obviously you read like the stories and see the videos and stuff and the propaganda that's going on there as well. On the other side. Interviewing like Israelis and them saying, this is our land and we've inherited it by God and stuff. And what if we came up with a similar story? What if Muslims came up with a similar story where this entire earth was once Muslim because Adam alayhi salam believed in Allah and he knew the advent of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he even said La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, he saw it written on the arsh, right? All this stuff. We come up with a narrative, right? That says that we own the earth. And yalla, let's make a claim. Right?
They didn't do it out of religion, though, did they? Because that's not where Zionism is. There's a difference between what a Zionist believe in, so to speak.
Mm.
Because it's just another form of atheism if you go deep in. So they're not doing it out of religion. It's just the name.
Yeah, I was thinking about that as well. Yeah, that's a good point, man. I was thinking about that as well. I was like, where does the deen fall in all of this, right? Because if you think about it, right, the things that set these conflicts off, or these bombardments and stuff, the things that set it off, and the protests as well that they retaliate as a result of, they're not like sort of religious in nature, if you think about it, right? So, religion comes into it in the sense that it's Al-Aqsa, it's the masjid, they're praying and that sort of thing. So there's a religious element to it underneath that, but there's it's more humanitarian than anything else. I mean, these guys are praying. Anybody praying, man. If someone attacked a synagogue, that thing that happened in America, right? Yeah. Shocking, man. Even I was like, dude, what is that, man? Who goes into a place of worship where people are, whoever they are, man, worshipping Allah or worshipping whatever they're worshipping, but doing something like that and then going in and killing them? And they're on their knees and they're supplicating and they're doing whatever, right? That's just like cowardice on another degree, right? So same thing here. So it's religious in that element, but it's humanitarian in that, dude, man, you just don't do something like that. That is just universally condemned, right? Whether you're Muslim or you're not Muslim, you don't do that. You don't do that. You don't desecrate other people's religions. You don't ولا تسبوا الذين يدعون من دون الله فيسبوا الله عدوا بغير علم, right? And do not curse those who worship other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the things that they worship other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that they turn around and curse Allah out of enmity and retaliation from what you're doing. This is the Qur'an talking, right? We're not allowed to do that. So if we're not allowed to say things that will tick them off, doing things, hello, is even worse. وَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفٍّ, right? When we took رَبِّ ارْحَمْهُمَا كَمَا رَبَّيَانِي صَغِيرًا, we said that we're not allowed to even utter a word of displeasure to our parents, let alone do something to them, right? So the same thing with other religions, right? So that's like across the board, you know. And then obviously the dispossession of their homes and all this other stuff that's going on in Sheikh Jarrah, all this stuff, right? That's not nothing to do with the deen. That's got everything to do with, you know, who they are as people, man, and where they live and their livelihoods.
Look at the humanitarian thing. You're killing children, and what they're talking about Israel being put in a bad light.
Yeah.
But Hamas started this to put Israel.
Yeah.
Nobody's talking about the kids. 8 children have been killed.
But Imam Sab.
Did you see that CNN interview of that guy? What was his name? I forget his name now. She asked him, do you support the violent protests that are doing, and his response, he goes, do you support the violent dispossession? Was it BBC?
BBC was BBC. Emily.
Are you sure? Yeah.
This woman called is Emily.
Okay, it was BBC. Alright, I can't remember now which channel it was, but what a response, man! What a response.
About the ambassador for Palestine.
No, not the ambassador.
No, this guy who
The ambassador was fantastic. So the reason why I bring that up is because the narrative that they place whenever this stuff is brought up is always a narrative of self-defense and that sort of thing, right? But it's got 6 years ago, right, or 7 years ago, was it?
Yeah.
There was an Irish MP called something Norris, Steve Norris or something like that.
Yeah, that's going on already.
Is that going around again? Yeah.
Yeah.
So he made some like powerful speech in the Senate. 7 years ago, man, and he was addressing these very same issues. It's like you can't hide behind these slogans anymore. You just can't do it. And every time there's any type of protest, it's always like, do you remember the Holocaust? Do you know what the Jewish people have been through, and so on and so forth? It's like, but you're man, and it's like you're subjecting people to the exact same thing that they went through. The Jews went through all those years ago with the Nazis.
I think Trevor Noah, I don't know if you know him.
Yeah.
I think he summarized it quite well. He goes, the narrative on this is that anything you say about Israel, right or wrong, it is anti-Semite. He goes, me just saying this, I'm probably going to have hate speech.
Yeah. That's true too.
And half the people are going to leave me. But he goes, someone needs to address it.
Yeah.
To address it. I think he gave the same example you're talking about.
Really?
Because my mom used to say that. My 5-year-old brother used to come and fight with me when I was 15, 16. And I used to say, what are you going to achieve by that? He can't do anything to you.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
And that's
Man.
What are Palestinians going to do with their stones and their little things?
Yeah. And always the responsibility is always with the powerful. You have to remember that, yeah? Whenever you have as a position of power, you always have the greater responsibility. It's up to you, man. Like, no one's going to turn around to an adolescent child and tell him to grow up. they're going to look at the elder person that's fighting and say, listen man, you need to act your age. If you stop, he'll stop, right? If you draw the line, they'll know not to cross it, right? But if you're constantly like berating and haranguing, right, then of course, man, that's not going to happen, right? وَلَا تَزِدِ الظَّالِمِينَ إِلَّا تَبَارًا.
The Muslim world is to be blamed.
Huh?
The Muslim world is to be blamed for what is happening to Palestine.
The Muslim world needs to be
Blamed.
blamed.
Of course. Because we never stand for them.
I don't know, man. I don't know, man. I don't know about blame, man. I don't know about blame. So the thing about these sorts of things, right, when they happen, where you put the blame is so hard to pinpoint. Is it this person's fault? But then it's equally this person's fault. And then we have, as Muslims, right, we always feel that we have some sort of responsibility to what's happening with the Muslim world as well, right? إذا اشتكى عضو تداعى عليه سائر الجسد بالسهر والحمى, right? So even if one part of our body is in pain, the rest of our body feels it, right? So same thing, when one part of the ummah is hurting, we all feel it. So we will feel this collective responsibility that we are somehow. So if we're somehow responsible, this blame somehow falls on us as well, right? So there's, so I don't. You might be right. You might be right. You can point the finger and say, you know what, these people are to blame, that people are to blame, leaders are to blame, the Muslim leaders not doing anything. The collective silence is just like deafening.
There's a certain resonance to what brother is saying. When so-called countries want to regularize relations with Israel, are they blind to see what's happening with
Saudi
Israel?
For example, why Saudi don't say anything?
The hypocrites,
Why?
you know that.
This is the one we follow the most, Saudi. So why are they? Because you're more corrupt than you.
I don't know, man. I don't know. So there's games that are being playing there. So the political world is all a game, right? It's all a game. There's no making sense of it. The second that you think you've made sense of it, something's going to come up, and you got like, what the hell? And you got to recalibrate your mind now and think, what's going on here, right? So for us, it's very simple. Qur'an, Sunnah, we have the principles. This is how you're supposed to live your life by. When you get up here to the politics level, right? This stuff doesn't matter anymore. This stuff, they put the Qur'an and Sunnah to the side, and they start to play their games, right? So it's not, it's normalizing relations and stuff like that, and they were normalized way before. They just made it official. Do you know what I mean? So that hasn't been a problem. That's always been there, right? It's probably is part of the problem, but that's always been there, man. It's just that they've made that official. So it's like what they're doing there. There's no explaining. There's no trying to rationalize. It's all okay. What gains can I make by doing this? That's all it is. That's all it comes down to. What more power can I get? More influence can I get? What more wealth can I ultimately get? That's all.
So
How can I?
Different to the business model that people are.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And it's supported by all of these different things. So the government, in actual reality, and especially the Khilafah system, what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to govern people's deen and dunya, right? Govern people's deen in that it protects it, it makes sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing, ensures that the laws in the Sharia are implemented and so on and so forth, and people are living a moral and upright and forthright life that is full of purpose, that is full of meaning, and that brings people together of different backgrounds and different cultures and different places all over the world, right? And in their deen, it's supposed to ensure that all of their needs are taken care of. The whole service thing, we've been through this a number of times in our sessions, where leadership is all about service, being in the service of Muslims. Brother, mashallah, right? It's all about being in the service of Muslims. Sorry guys, he went out for half an hour, came back and he's got a haircut, mashallah. Getting ready for Eid, right? So leadership and authority is all about being in the service of the people that you are governing and you are in the authority of, right? Not controlling, not being tyrannical over, and that sort of thing, right? Which is what the current system is doing. And what that's supposed to do is make sure that everybody gets their haqq, and whoever does anything wrong is reprimanded and so on and so forth. But it's supposed to protect you from people who wish to exploit you, right? That's what it's supposed to do. Whether that exploitation comes from the enemy or it comes from your friend, your ally. No one is supposed to exploit you. You are to live your life free with autonomy, not allowed to be dictated to about what you do and what you don't do, right? Only in a handful of things that is supposed to come back to the benefit of society. They're supposed to serve society. That's all, right? But here you have a system where no, it's the total opposite, right? Everything is supporting tyranny. right? So the government now is not protecting you from being exploited. Rather, it is putting in laws that allow the exploiters to get away with it by law. So that when you turn around and say, no, I don't think this is right, I don't think that, people should have all my details and my data and should sell that on to other private companies and stuff. I don't think that I should be paying extortionate amount of money for things that are going to be saving my life and saving the life of my family and so on and so forth. I don't think this should happen, right? But you can't say that now because there's a law that says that that's lawful, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, right? It's totally lawful. I watched a clip once of a guy who's making sort of a comedy out of the divorce system in America, right? And they say that when you get divorced there, obviously you lose half your wealth, and the property usually goes to the woman, and it's usually the woman that gets custody of the kids and stuff like that, and the guy has to pay alimony and all this other stuff, right? So and even if she's had an affair, or even if something's happened or whatever, she can make some claims and stuff, and he'll lose whatever, right? And when they're checked about it and asked about it, I ask women about it, and why? What do you think this is all right? And they'll respond and they'll say, yeah, it's all right because the law says it's all right. And so he turns around and he goes, the law said 100 years ago that I can hit you with a mop. Was that okay to do then, right? Obviously he said it in a jokey way, and anybody listening and stuff, it's not serious and stuff, but it shows you that if someone's making up a law, that doesn't make it okay. That doesn't make it okay. Never does it make it okay, right? That doesn't mean it's moral. Morals are something else. Morals we get from somewhere else, right? We get it from Allah and His Messenger. That's where we get it from. We discern what is right and what is wrong from Allah and His Messenger, right? Not what Fulan and Alan tells us, Zayd and Ubaid, Boris and David or whoever else is going to tell us what's moral and what's immoral, right? It's taken from Allah and His Messenger. It's taken from revelation, right? So yeah, man, that's what's kind of going on. Allahu Akbar. So any dua that we're going to make in this series is pertinent to our situation in our lives, because we are faced with all of this stuff on a daily basis, right? And with all of this stuff comes an enmity towards the belief that we hold, right? And so we have to make that dua, رَبَّنَا لَا تُزِغْ قُلُوبَنَا بَعْدَ إِذْ هَدَيْتَنَا, right? So that we are steadfast after we have been guided, right? So we recognize the truth when it comes to us, we follow that truth, and we try our best to stay upon the Sirat al-Mustaqim. And we have all of these waves and swaths of different types of misguidance that are trying to pull us away, right? In general terms, like misguidance, but they're really specific in what they're trying to do, right? Misconceptions, trying to go down the moral path of or the ethical path of the fact that the Prophet ﷺ married Aisha when she was really young. The Prophet ﷺ, he allowed slavery. The beating of women is in the Qur'an, and all these other misconceptions that they take something out of context and they blow it up, kill them wherever you find them. That means you can kill an infidel everywhere, and this is what Muslims believe and stuff like that. Dude, man, you're taking the words of the Qur'an, not taking it in context at all, and whatever it says, you're just running away with it. Do you know what I mean? And then people look at us like and then our kids that aren't sort of well educated in the deen and don't have that culture, Islamic culture around them and stuff, they're swayed by this stuff and they believe it, and then you're trying to convince them that no. Then they question the very existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the very existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is nowhere in society. Nowhere is Allah's name taken anywhere. Right? So رَبَّنَا لَا تُزِغْ قُلُوبَنَا بَعْدَ إِذْ هَدَيْتَنَا, and having our children upon upon iman and stuff, right? رَبِّ اجْعَلْنِي مُقِيمَ الصَّلَاةِ وَمِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِي, have that ibadah, the central point of their lives, right? These are all really, really important du'as, and they touch upon our lives like there's on another level, man, on another level. I don't think, maybe we just don't realize how significant they are to our lives, but when you put them in context, right, and what they were revealed about and who was saying them and how they were saying them, and you apply them to what's happening in the reality of our lives, there is nothing more pertinent than these du'as that we're making. Nothing more pertinent. And the du'as are the weapon of the believer, silahul mu'min, right? And we don't recognize, so we're all about the causality in this world, right? So if you buy something for a tenner and sell it for 20 quid, you get £10 profit. That's how our mind works, right? We're very causal in our, okay, I take this medicine, I have a fever, I take paracetamol, I'm going to be better, right? Causality. Why? Because that's how, first of all, that's how it's sold to us. That's how reality is sold to us. We're told that that's how reality is and that's how the real world works. And secondly, it's because we are so accustomed to seeing that happen in our lives that we are unaware of the miraculous nature of the world and how things aren't black and white and things aren't causal and things aren't 1 + 1 is 2 and it happens all the time. It's only because we live in the digital world, which is binary, which is ones and zeros, ones and zeros and ones and zeros and never changes from that, is the fact that everything is so causal and so 1 + 1 = 2, right? And so because we're so drowned in that form of reality that we don't see that dua is the weapon of the believer, because dua has no causal effect. There's no causality between you saying something and something happening. Where? Show me. Show me how there is a connection between. You can't. Because it's in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the destiny of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah's already written it and decreed it. And He's decreed that you're going to make that dua, so He's decreed that that thing is going to happen. Allah's not bound by time, so He doesn't have a past and doesn't have before and after and so on and so forth. So if something's going to happen tomorrow, it's going to happen tomorrow. Allah wants it to happen tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? So that's the way, that's what we believe in. And that's what dua makes happen. That's what dua causes. Right? So we have to recognize that, right? Let's get out of the blindfold that's been put over our eyes with regards to what reality has been sold to us, and recognize the true reality, that is the reality of Allah. And Allah, one of His names is Al-Haq, right? The truth, the reality, the real. Allah is real. Everything else is just an illusion. One day you will die and you will see your reality. This dunya that we're so hell-bent on, of controlling, of power and money and all these other things, all these other argumentations about whether the deen of Islam is true or not and so on and so forth, all these other things, all going to go. You are going to go. And you'll be left with your reality in the akhirah. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا ربنا اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وإسرافنا في أمرنا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا وأخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين آمين يا رب العالمين. Jazakallah khair, guys. What a journey it's been throughout Ramadan. It's been an absolute pleasure to sit with you guys, mashallah. No, inshallah. And inshallah we'll continue something after Ramadan as well, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair to everyone at home as well. I love you guys, and hopefully, inshallah, I haven't seen you throughout these sessions.